I'm Alex Howard.
And I'm Amanda Silver, and this is Dirty Laundry. So we kind of feel like our podcast is a little bit like the Truman Show.
Yeah.
Like, especially in the beginning, where we weren't getting a lot of feedback. Like, now it's grown and it's different.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, we felt like we were like creating this content.
Yeah.
But there was nobody really there.
Yeah, we made this joke about like, okay, well, is anybody even really listening? Well, of course there are. We're getting some comments and like, Ryan keeps showing up to produce this podcast. It must be real. And we're like, imagine if everyone in our lives, in like our family and our circle of friends, was in on this whole idea. They were just supporting our dreams, but it's all made up.
It's all made up.
It's absolutely fabricated.
The mics aren't even plugged in.
Nothing is plugged in.
No.
The guests are just actors paid to entertain us.
We're just sitting in my house talking to nobody.
To no one.
Yeah.
There's nothing on the cameras. Nothing on the...
It's all up here.
Yeah. It still makes me giggle.
Still makes me
So
giggle.
please tell us if you're listening. Give us some feedback so we don't think we're losing our marbles, which we may have never had it to begin with.
It's just always the Truman Show.
We're trying our hardest to bring you good content. And maybe the content is so good that people are in fact entertained by it, even if they're in on the joke. Like maybe they expected us to fail. Maybe they'd be like, oh, they'll do this for a couple weeks.
There's no way this is going to work out.
They can't sustain it. We'll let it fizzle out, but we can support them. And here we are.
I feel like some people were like that when I told them I was starting a podcast.
People in your life?
Yeah. Like,
I mean, considering you had never listened to one prior to me approaching
like,
you.
Okay, you're going to do a podcast. So about what? Like, so what? Like, what are you, like, where's that going to lead? I'm like, just you wait.
Just you wait.
Just you wait.
Look at us now.
Look at us now. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Who would have thought?
Who would have thunk it? Well, and on this Monday, we have had a beautiful conversation.
Yes.
With the very funny.
She's hysterical.
She's very hysterical. Yeah. You sent me some stuff and I was like, okay, all right.
And like, I never know if she's telling if these are true stories or if they're not.
Yes.
So like, take it with a grain of salt, but some of them are.
But you know what? Isn't that comedy?
Yeah.
Where it's like, and
she tells it so, she's so like.
She's deadpan.
Yes.
She's
so I believe
very sincere.
Yeah.
She's really committed to her craft. She is making, I don't want to say like a divorce comedy, but it is really kind of pinpointing. I think any good comedy highlights the sort of flaws that we all have kind of glossed over. We all just take these things for granted. There's like a part of the world and we just go about our day really kind of checked out in a way. Like we've just become used to whatever systems are in place and we just... off we go. And she highlights those things and in a comedic way, which makes it approachable.
Right.
And then it kind of gives you some food for thought where you pause afterwards. You're like,
It's kind of like a mirror almost into our flaws or into our thoughts and our problems.
Yeah.
And so she does that, but she obviously like embellishes it and makes it like theatrical.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, her issues are real issues that she's talking about.
Yeah.
She's talking about child support.
Yeah.
She's talking about domestic violence. She's talking about family court. Like these are all real issues.
Yeah.
But she does it in such a comedic way.
Exactly. So, and I think that's what's given her such the following that she has is people like to laugh, right? They like to be entertained. But she just slides a little sneaky message there. And I respect that. Yeah.
Today on Dirty Laundry, we have Jennifer Muscatel of the Single Mom Society. She has a podcast. She's a comedian. She is all over Instagram and TikTok. And she is here to bring some levity to divorce and being a single parent and all that goes with it. So welcome, Jennifer. Okay, well, welcome, Jennifer. Single Mom Society. Is it the Single Mom Society or is it a Single Mom Society?
It could be all of them.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to be this society where we're here for each other, sisterhood.
Yeah.
I love the sisterhood that you created.
And speaking of sisterhood, I mean, what really was the post on your Instagram that like just like it shook me. It was the most impactful was you talking about how your best friend saved you. Yeah. And just that whole sort of chronology, if you will, that conversation So powerful.
Yeah. It's funny because I never know if I can go there because people want funny from me. But the real me is like the deep one. And that was it was incredible that I'll never forget it. We went to the grocery store and we were just happy. We've been friends since we were in middle school, and we came back giddy. And my ex-husband was pissed. He was so mad that I was happy. And he started like tearing things up. We were supposed to go to dinner and he drove us to dinner erratically. And she said, Jen, you got to get out of this. And I remember I was like, I can't be a single mom. And she said, you already are. And
that's it.
Like, bam. Wow.
Right. Yeah. I have goosebumps.
That realization
again.
that you already are.
Yeah.
Is just.
And then so I want to go back, but just while we're on this, so what does that sort of in your head, that click of, oh shit, I'm already doing it. Now what comes next?
That's a good question, because I don't think I left right away. I think what happened, there was, I went and stayed with my parents for a little bit, and then he got me back with, do you remember the toggle? It was from, I think it was from Legally Blonde or Clueless, where there was the toggle Tiffany bracelet.
Yeah.
And so he brought me that at my parents.
Legally Blonde.
Okay. But yeah, that it didn't last very long. And I had gone out with my mom. God forbid I went to yoga. And when I came back, he punished me again. He was mad that I had done something for myself. And the whole house was dark. And my son came up to me, and he was 1, and he said, Mommy, pasta? And I said, did you feed the baby? And he said, oh, I forgot.
Oh, fuck.
And and
he's hungry.
And this little 1-year-old's telling me, and then he had made this huge feast for himself, though, because he loved to cook. And he came into the kitchen where I was, and I thought he was going to like hug me or something. He kind of came close to me, and he went boom, boom, and he like tapped me to move out of his way. And I think that's when I was like, oh, okay, I see where we're at here.
Yeah.
This isn't changing. So, yes, but this happened with both my marriages, that I knew the writing was on the wall, but I was so afraid. And I think this is a lot of women a lot of men and women, we think that divorce is the last thing. Like he would threaten me and say, I'm going to go kill myself. And I'd be like, all right, fingers crossed, because I thought like divorce is the worst. Like divorce would be easy.
Anything but divorce, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that really held me back for a long time with both of them. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that. Like, that's the last solution. I'm like, nobody has to die.
Yeah. Why is death easier than going
and
through
they think
divorce?
that living in a toxic marriage, a controlling marriage where you're miserable and you can't even go to a yoga class without being, reprimanded or
on guard or walking on eggshells, any of that.
And for some reason, I guess it's because of the stigma. People think that I would rather all of those things. I'd rather be in an abusive marriage. I'd rather, be hiding things from the world and from my friends than be divorced.
Yeah.
Such a yucky
And we're here
word.
to say no.
Yeah. No, you don't.
No.
You definitely don't.
And I had a facialist at the time who said to me, she was a lot older, but so I liked her wisdom. And she said, Jen, I left one time for 4 years, and he came and got me, and I went back. And then it was 4 more years she wasted with him.
Yeah.
And then she had to leave again. And she's like, that was 4 years in my 20s that I lost. And I remember that really sticking in my head. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to waste time.
But also, Jen, I love that you've brought this up now twice, because I think it's really important also for our listeners to know that it might not take the first time.
It usually takes more than one.
It usually does take more than one time. And
yeah.
especially if there's children, if there's any kind of abuse happening, because we are like, you get into that love bombing cycle, right? For you as a Tiffany's bracelet, for her, who knows what, but for everyone, they've got such this desire to make it work.
Yes.
And
that
promises.
you want to go back. You don't want to be a single mom. You don't want to be a divorcee, for whatever the rationale, whether it's stigma or simply that's just not how you imagined your life to be. And so I think it's really helpful to know that if you are thinking about leaving, or if you've already tried once, you haven't failed at this too, right? It's like, oh, I failed at my marriage. I failed at my divorce. Just failing at everything.
Stuck either, because you tried and you came back doesn't mean you're stuck.
Exactly.
You can leave and make it count too. Make it stick.
How many people say to us, well, why didn't you leave sooner?
Yes.
And then they'll say, why did you leave so soon? You didn't give it a try. So you can't.
Yeah, there's no winning. Yeah,
and no one knows how long that's in your head for, you right? How long that's circulating in your head, that idea of leaving. Nobody knows what goes on inside. So who are we to judge people's timelines?
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, shouldn't the question be, why did you need to leave so early? Or, what was happening that was so bad that you had to stay? Was he making you, there's all these questions we don't ask of the man and we ask of the woman to judge her.
Yeah. Always. Yeah. Always. As opposed to just being, hey, how can I help? Or are you okay? How are you doing? Yeah. What do you need? Like, there's such a gentle way to support people, because leaving a marriage is also not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's worth celebrating. And that may have taken you 4 years and you finally did it. And like, high five.
Yeah,
and
be
now
proud
what
of
comes
the decision
next?
that you've been able to make.
That's a hard decision and you did it.
And so you went through this twice.
I did.
Take us back. Take us back to the beginning.
The first one, I was so young. We got engaged when I was 19, and
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And my brother got married. I think he was 24. I was 23, but they're still together. They have a great marriage, like a real marriage. There's ups and downs like everything, but they, my brother will go to the grocery store for 5 minutes and he comes home and pats her butt and gives her a kiss. They're a good couple. So I think I had that in my head. My mom got married young. So I was like, oh, that's just what we do. And I settled. I think this is another thing that a lot of us do, that we are rushing for some reason, and there's just no rush. If it's supposed to happen, it will end up happening. Yeah. Take your time. And I think the younger generation is doing that.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Prioritizing themselves, their career, their interests, and their identity.
Yes, their identity.
Beyond, they're establishing their identity before it's I'm a wife or I'm a mother.
And I think that they're still getting that sort of like patriarchal society pushback. Like, oh, aren't you worried about having kids? You're ticking womb and all of this.
Don't forget to freeze your eggs.
Exactly. Or you're so selfish. Don't you want a family? Don't you want to settle down? Like, I think that there is still the pushback, but I think they're also kind of like, fuck you. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Which is actually wonderful.
I think that's so empowering. Like, you do you on your timeline.
Well,
don't
wouldn't
tell
it be more
else.
selfish to have kids if you didn't want them than to not have them in the first place?
Or you're not ready because you're 22
because you're a baby yourself. Yeah.
My son, he's thinking he'll be, what is it, like a dink, like dual income, no kids.
I haven't heard that. Dual income, no kids.
Double income, no kids is dink.
It sounds like.
The other day, I was like, I think I'm a dink. No income, too many kids. What's happening?
And then my nephew's girlfriend, they're 20, I think she's 27, but I was just with her and she was like, yeah, he wants to go to grad school in another state. I'm not going. My family's here, no jobs here. So I was like, all right, good job. I like that.
I love that.
They'll do long distance and they'll rush.
Yeah.
So that was your first marriage ended just simply you were both young.
We were so young, and he's still, I say he's like a cousin, or, like he lives in Brazil, and his parents write me every Friday to wish me a Shabbat Shalom. And so sweet. And they're actually kinder to my daughter than her own grandparents. They send her presents and ask how she is. So they're
and this is your daughter with your second husband.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So So then,
and they have no relation to her, but they feel that connection.
Oh, that's nice.
And then the second one, again, I just felt like this time crunch, and I really felt like marriage was the answer. And so I think it had been 5 years since I got divorced. I was like, oh my God, that's so much time. That's terrible. I have to get married again. And I met him, and everybody asked questions, but I didn't. I was like, oh no, it's all fine. It's fine. It's great. It's fine. And my parents were like, please do a little bit of research. And and I knew I think that's the biggest lesson I could teach somebody from my mistakes, is just listen to the red flags, because I saw them. I just didn't pay attention to them.
And what was it for you? You just wanted the security of marriage. You just felt like this was something that you were supposed to do. Like, why did you ignore those? Looking back now, obviously when you're in the moment, it's understandable. But now when you reflect, what do
Yeah,
you think that was?
I think I just was, like now I've been single now for 10 years. Who fucking cares?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care. And, my life is great. And if I bring anybody into this life, they better make it better.
That's exactly how I say that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like 7 years out and I'm just like, I'm not in a rush. Like they have to be worthwhile.
You're not putting up with the shit anymore.
It's easy to settle. It's honestly, it is. It's easy to settle, but it's harder to find, someone who, works.
Yeah. I say it's like going to buy a car when you already love your car, but you just want like you have money to spare from child support. So you want to go buy another car.
Oh, I love your child support reels. It's hysterical. They're hysterical.
But if you already love what you have, then you're going to go to dealership to, and test drive things and really choose what you want, as opposed to like, oh shit, my car broke down today. I need a new one. I'll just take whatever deal I can get.
Yes. You can be a bit more choosy.
I was going to ask you, because you had your first son, your first child with your first marriage, and then you were single for a few years with one kid. Yeah. Did you feel a pressure that like to have another child like quickly, or he's an only child? Like, did you feel that?
I always had the calling for my two kids. Like since I was like 16, I remember that. So I really thought I was going to have a boy and a girl. And, and then as I got into my second marriage and there was like trouble I could get pregnant. He couldn't get me pregnant. And there was all this long story, but I thought, okay, it's not going to happen. That's okay. And then I was like, no, this has to happen for me. And so I don't know how woo-woo people get, but I really do feel like my marriages were about my kids. Because if the world didn't have them, it would be a loss.
It'd be a worse place. Yeah. I love that. So you have built this career really off of these two experiences. How now, like when you look back, I don't know what you were doing before. Please share. I'd love to know sort of professionally where you were prior to shifting over to this incredible community you've built, et cetera, et cetera. Could you imagine being here today?
No, definitely not. I knew there was something I knew I needed to teach. And I had gone to, my friend is a healer, and she had said, there's something you're missing. You're talking about all these things, but there's something that you're really good at that you're forgetting to talk about. And it was this, so you just don't think about it. But so mostly I've been a mom and I have investments. And so I've been able to not have to, have this 9 to 5. And then, but I wanted one because I wanted one for my own ego, maybe ego.
Yeah.
But so I had recently gotten my certifications in NLP and another one in just regular coaching. And so I was trying to do that on Instagram, like talk to people about that kind of thing. And then it was like, everyone's doing that. Everyone has some sort of woo-woo message. And so one day I'd gotten my nails done and I was sitting in the car and my daughter was at camp and I just started doing the opposite. Like the sarcasm.
The sarcasm is hysterical. Like this, the child support ones are hysterical.
Yeah.
Because, I think that a lot of, maybe men get a bad rap a little bit sometimes, but sometimes it's worth it.
So do women.
Yes.
Right.
But it's just like they think like, oh, well, I'm paying so much in child support. She must be, getting a private jet and her nails done and all these things. But but in reality, it basically
like diapers and formula.
It barely covers the rent or the utilities or what have you, or their education or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I'm
it's just
really clear on my page. Like there are great men. Like, I said, my brother, my dad, they never left. There's so many great men out there, but we're talking about the deadbeats. We're talking about the ones that aren't paying. And when they come on to my comments and they're like, you don't even understand what she's buying. I'm like, how much do you pay her per month for her to be able to afford all that? I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
And the whole point of child support, which I have to often remind my clients, is that it is the right of the child, okay? And the whole point of it is to equalize the sort of standard of living in both homes, so that a child shouldn't be going to like a $10 million house and then a rental.
Yeah.
And so there has to be some equalization of that. And that's just the way it is, so that the children have an equal sort of life. And sometimes they can't get their heads around, well, they're going on a trip and she's going to buy this. Well, that's how it works.
Yeah. And that's also no longer your business.
And you don't get to say how she spends that child support. I'm saying she because, for the majority of people, I think.
Yes, because the patriarchy holds us back and we don't make as much money as men do.
There are some women paying child support
yes,
too.
There are.
So it's not just men, but traditionally, yes.
That runs into the whole issue of these women. I'm reading the book called Frame by Amy Polacco and Dr. I can never say her name. It's like COCH something, but it's all about how, women are in family court, and then family court is just framing them so they end up without their children and paying child support, these protective parents. So there's a really big problem there too.
Listen, we are the first to say how effed the family court system is in the U.S., in Canada.
Both.
I mean,
everywhere.
I don't know much about Europe.
Is similar to Canada.
We've interviewed many people in the
Australia.
UK, and exactly. Yeah. It's beyond. And we always challenge one another to be like, okay, what would you fix? What would you do differently? Like, if you could redesign the system, what would you do? And it's a really hard question, and I don't always have the answer. But we know for certain it's broken.
Right. I think it's just corruption. I think they say that every court follows rules, but family court, it's the Wild West. There's no jurisdiction. There's no laws. And just time after time after time, the judges are making decisions based on, what kickback can I get from this guardian ad litem, that kind of thing. And so I have one I'm working on right now where the judge is siding with the father because she wants to get into a country club and the lawyer belongs to the country club.
Oh my God.
But it's true. I mean, that's really.
Oh my God.
Yikes.
So tell me what you do in terms of the court work.
That's one of my jokes.
Oh, I thought that was serious.
Oh, I thought you were serious.
We hear the wildest stories that to me that made sense.
I was that seems plausible.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it's happened. But she's like pretending she's drunk and she's like, thanks, that was a great party. I love your country club.
Okay, Amanda and I love the humor that you bring to it. Part of what we do on the pod, same thing. We're trying to bring some levity. Everyone knows divorce sucks. It's not ideal, but it is a reality for many. And so we try and bring a little humor. How did you decide? Are you just naturally a comedian? Like, you're hilarious. So hilarious.
I always think it's so funny because if you asked, like my brother and nephews and niece, they'd be like, what? No, my kids for sure, they would not think I'm funny. But I think our family just does that. Like there's some families that just get by with humor, and we will get each other going. So
that's awesome.
I think it's so healing to use humor. I know I do that for so many things because I just find it's like, what do you say? If you don't laugh, you'll cry.
If you don't laugh, you'll cry.
And so it's just
the alternative.
Yeah, it's so healing.
And do you get a lot of pushback? And maybe from the men that you're teasing, fine, if they're the butt of your jokes. But what about just even other folks that are going through it that are like, how dare you laugh about my struggle? Because I can imagine there would be a bit of backlash for you.
Sometimes, like I did one about the LA fires. But the thing is when it hits the right people, they're like, thank you. Because this is exactly what I'm going through. Like I did a joke about, like the man was in Europe with his girlfriend because she was having trouble with the air, with her kids and her, but he didn't know where his house in the Palisades, his kids were there, but maybe they're in a shelter. I guess I'll see it on the news. But that was, what a lot of women were experiencing, where the man just was MIA and she was trying to figure out how to save her kids. So it might offend, I don't know, 5 people, but hit with so many more, so they can fuck off.
And I guess they can totally fuck off. And realistically, with any business, you're going to have your target market and you're going to have those that just don't align, and that's cool too. So you've sort of found your following. And like I said earlier, you've built this beautiful community. How did that come to be? Like, you're posting on socials, you're getting some reactions, people are liking what you're putting out there, they feel seen and heard and validated. And then what? How does this snowball into where you are at now?
Well, you guys know, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, if you have the intention of being sisters and, helping other women along, then it grows. So, I mean, I'm still growing. I started in July, so it's still really growing. And then I think
pretty recent.
Yeah. And I just
That's
did my
amazing.
14th episode of my podcast. And the tagline is, if we don't laugh, we'll cry. It's something like that.
There you go.
The shitstorm of life.
There you go.
Yeah.
It really is. That's so
It is
true.
a real dumpster fire.
It is.
Yeah, you got to
It
find the
is.
humor.
You have to find the humor.
Yeah.
So you're coaching women.
I'm not coaching right now.
No,
I'm
you're not
still
coaching.
figuring out what I want to do. I mean, I guess how you probably naturally just end up coaching. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like you guys coach, but
Mhm.
but I am still trying to figure out what I want to do exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you built a beautiful platform to do that.
So looking back now, like if you could give your younger self any kind of advice, what would that be?
Just that she's lovable. We're all
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
lovable and so worthy, and we just deserve all the right things. And if we're not getting them, we need to wait and ask for more.
Yeah, move on. Yeah, demand
Yeah.
the worth. I
Yeah.
think I wish that there was like some kind of class in
self-worth,
elementary school or middle school, like when
Yeah.
things start getting real tricky, where you just like sit for
Know
30
your
minutes with
worth.
your peers and you do affirmations and you empower one another and
I
building
think it's coming.
each
I think
other
it's
up.
coming.
I just think there's so many, not even just women, but for lack of, I just think that we walk into these situations because we're like, well, I guess this is it.
This is as good as it's going to get.
We've been conditioned to just be happy with the crumbs that fall off of someone else's table. And it's like, better take that, because if not, there's 10 women behind you that will pick up those crumbs and then you're totally fucked. And it's like, we just need to really impress upon these youngsters that it's like, just what you said, just wait.
Yeah.
Wait
Don't
for
rush.
it. Know your value, know your worth, and you'll know when that right person comes along.
Yeah. Well, and we don't need to get married. I think that's the other thing. We were so conditioned that we had to be in a couple, that was the goal. Like we always talk about with the Disney movies, that's the last scene is the wedding, but we don't have to have the wedding.
That's not the goal.
Really full of a lot of great things.
Yeah. And how has being a single mom changed the way you parent? Or did it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think probably for me personally, I am probably too relaxed. Both of my kids are motivated, thankfully, on their own. But my daughter will say to me sometimes, "Can you just be a little bit more strict?" So, because you end up as a single mom going, "Hey, what do you want for dinner?" No, I'm not in the mood for that. So you end up having like an accidental peer relationship. So I'd say that. But the other thing, I think the biggest lesson would be that I always told them we're not going to act like a cliche single parent family where, they're not getting good grades because, they're missing a dad or something. But no, we go to school, we get our work done, we have our goals, we're going to fulfill all of that. We're no different. This is just how our family is.
Yeah, it's not a crutch that you can have as an excuse or, be a perpetual victim because of your circumstances. I love that.
Yeah.
Because you know what? At the end of the day, everyone's got some kind of circumstance 100%. That they could use as a, to scapegoat out of things.
Single family home or not.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's difficult raising kids. It's challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, it has its own challenges when you're doing it on your own, but
oh no,
it's
every family, you never know what it is.
What people are dealing with.
Yeah. Everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah. My son would deal with, he would get, because his dad moved to Brazil. So he'd miss them so much. And then daddy would be coming and it'd be so exciting. And then daddy would come and it would be awkward because they hadn't seen each other in 6 months or a year. And then they'd get used to each other and then daddy would go home. And then it would be so sad. So there was this constant cycle and, I don't want to go to school today. I'm like, no, we're going to school. This is just what our family deals with. But there's always something you can't think of. And what's interesting is in his fraternity, he was in a STEM fraternity, these really sweet boys. And they had these nights where they would like exchange, like their feelings and stuff. And
You're like, you love this.
It's my dream. Fraternity. That is not the fraternities that
not in my
I
head.
experienced when I was in school.
They're so sweet. They're all such great guys. But my son came home and said, you know what, Mom, it's interesting because I thought I would have the worst story. But there's so many stories that are so much worse than mine. And, you know, their parents were married. So, there's always
It is that old adage, right? If everyone, you know, got together and threw all their shit into a pile, we'd all scramble to get our own shit right back.
One would want
you
each
don't
other's.
want other people's problems. Your own problems are so not anything in comparison.
Yeah.
How do they feel about you being so public online?
I know they're just, I make them cringe.
Sure. All parents are embarrassing.
Yeah.
Because, so embarrassing.
I'll be like, oh, take a video of me here. And they're like, no, that's so embarrassing. And then they like trade off like, okay, it's your turn. But now my daughter's getting old enough that she wants her own photo shoots. So she's starting to understand.
Hey.
Yeah.
You'll have to bring her onto yours then, I guess. How old is she?
She's 13. She just turned 13.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
there's a big age gap between them, and but they're really sweet together.
But there often is when you have like blended families or second families. There's often big age gaps, and that can be great.
Yeah. It was tough when he was little because he was like, I've been the star here for 11 years, and suddenly this little thing came along. But they're really cute together now.
That is really sweet.
Really
so what's next for Jen? What are you up to? What have you got down the pipeline?
Avenues. I obviously, like you said, there's always a message in everything I do. So everything is very silly, but it's pointing a finger at a systemic issue. And so that's how I will continue with this. I want to really be able to use the platform to help women. And, I'm meeting this week with the women who wrote Framed. And so the family court thing is really on my mind. The child support. I have a whole script for my podcast that I just wrote about that. So there's a lot of big issues that will come this way, but I hope that we can keep having fun, that my podcast picks up. We just continue, like you guys are doing, continue to help other women.
Yeah, I think as long as we just keep the dialogue going, right? Keep having these conversations, airing it out.
Keep airing it out.
But our tagline.
But doing it in a way where it's not an intimidating, you do it in such a light way that it's digestible and people want to share and be a part of it. And so it makes it, they can relate.
Yeah.
Is most of your messaging or work, is this all stuff that you have experienced, or now just being in this world and sharing in this community, you're kind of highlighting the things you see as well?
Yeah, maybe I'll be commenting to somebody like, oh, well, gosh, they should just do that instead. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to go write something, that's funny. Or, somebody will tell me their story. There's a script about the lawyer who's drunk and trying to get into the golf club. And that is completely most of the lines are directed at somebody I interviewed for my show.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but then, but because I think I would get in a lot of trouble if I was only doing my stories. And I think that, that's my saving grace, is that he could watch it and be like, oh, we never went through that. So,
right. Yeah. So some of it's fiction, some of it's nonfiction, but
or inspired
by true events. Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, we obviously work with a ton of clients, and a lot of that is, okay, what problem are you dealing with? Who do you want to hear from? What information do you need? How can we bring that to the masses via this platform? And I mean, you're clearly doing the same, but just with a lot of comedic relief, which I love.
Thank you.
So keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And keep us in the loop of future projects, because it sounds like you've really got your finger on the pulse about what people are struggling with.
Yeah.
And you've got some creative solutions, which I love.
Well, it's interesting too, because, there's these men justice for dads kind of pages. And they're it's not justice for dads. It's angry men who are complaining about women in the system. Yeah. So I wrote the guy, one of the heads of it, and I said, hey, let's work together, because if men feel like women are getting it too good in court and women feel like men are getting it too good, why don't we come together? Family court's obviously the problem. It's not.
Right.
And he said, no, no, we're not going to be working together. So, that's, I don't remember where I was going with that, but yeah.
He wasn't interested in,
Yeah, it highlights the fact that do you actually want to make change or do you just want to bitch and moan?
Well, that, and then like you guys working with me, I think is more where I was thinking like the collaboration, like I think it's going to just be women coming together and making changes for each other.
I mean, hasn't it always?
Yeah.
Like even as you were sharing your story about your son and, his dad coming back and forth and the distance and all of that, it's like, yeah, then he gets to go back to Brazil and you're left picking up the pieces and holding this sweet little boy and putting him back together.
Yeah.
And I'm sure his dad is also like, oh, that sucks. I miss my kid. But you're an adult. You can handle your own emotions.
Yeah.
But here's another mom sitting on the floor with their crying baby, trying to hold it together and
explain an absentee parent.
And trying to explain without trashing them and without disparaging, but just like, oh, they love you, but why aren't they here? I don't know. And it's like,
but they'd rather be with their other family or they'd rather be at the beach. And
it's right. So at the end of the day, it always, I think, will be women supporting women and the marginalized communities supporting the marginalized. And that's just the way it is. But we are getting better at it.
Yes.
And we are getting more confident and
we
are
louder.
Getting louder. And we're not stopping.
With
and this
microphones, your guys
exactly. We will not be stopped.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So
I really
thank
you guys promoting other people and noticing me. So thank you.
Definitely. You keep fighting that good fight, Jen. Thanks for your time. Take care.
And how do our listeners find you?
My page is Single Mom Society _. That's Instagram, sort of TikTok. I'm not very devoted. And then my podcast is the Single Mom Society, and that's on any platform.
Fabulous. And we'll include those in the notes for sure.
The guests that I have, you guys will need to come on, but the guests that I have are so incredible. They're all the women that I notice that are really making a difference, like maybe in the legal community or co-parenting, narcissist experts. They're just such great information. So
that is awesome. Another great resource. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For you guys. Bye.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.